It's time for your Week 13 Blue Rush preview show. The Giants head on down to Dallas on a short week, thank God, to take on the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. And if you're watching this or listening to this right now, then you know everything that's going on with the New York Football Giants. So there's no need for a special or formal introduction. But let's bring in the great Paul Schwartz, of course, longtime Giants beat writer for the New York Post. Paul and I are going to catch up with RJ Ochoa from Blogging the Boys to give us the storylines coming out of Dallas, but we got enough storylines up here, Paul, that we can talk about on a short week. What's going on, my man?
Hey, whoa! Did you see that? Did you see that?
What's that?
Sky is falling.
Yeah, feels like it.
Sky is falling. You know, I mean, you know what? I don't think it is, but I can see why people would say it is, and I'm not sure it isn't. I mean, when you lose the way you lose, coming off the week the Giants had after the Daniel Jones saga, all bets are off. You know, you can kind of say whatever you want and talk about quitting and soft play and all this other stuff. You know, it's all out there when you play like that. That's all there is to it. And it's up to the Giants to silence all that craziness going on, some of it real, some of it imagined, by playing better and maybe actually trying to win a game.
All right, which storyline do you want to hop on first in terms of trying to put that fire out for however long they can put that fire out? Which one would you say, or which narrative heading into this short week, this short game on Dallas, national TV, and the Giants have made national news now with what Rex Ryan is saying and Get Up and Greeny. Everybody's going at the New York Football Giants. Which storyline would you say needs to be put to bed the earliest with the win?
Well, the first one I think is quitting. You know, have they quit? Have they quit? Are they tanking the season? Did they botch the Daniel Jones situation so badly? This is the perception. You know, I think the Giants were kind of boxed in a corner a little bit. You know, so did all that lead to this team looking in saying, look, they got rid of our captain, they got rid of one of our team leaders, they got rid of someone who we think is the best quarterback in the room. They don't really care about winning. They don't even care about putting the backup quarterback in, Drew Lock. They put the number 3 quarterback in. So we don't know what the depth chart's all about. We don't know if the front office and the head coach are on the same page. Why the heck am I going to go there and bust my butt and put my, you know, heart and soul on the line? That's sort of what it looked like against the Bucs, right? And look, I've never started a game story in my career, and you know, Brandon, that's a long time, right? Yep. Where the first quote was one word, and this was the one word. You ready? You may want to cover your ears if you're a little sensitive. Ass. The first quote was ass, okay? Brian Burns was asked, you know, you guys were down 30-0. What does that say? And he said, that's ass. Okay. And, you know, it didn't get any better from that. You know, Dexter Lawrence, we played soft and they beat the something out of us. There was a lot of cursing. This something's got to change for sure, Wan'Dale Robinson said. You know, so, you know, Jermaine Illuminor said, I saw guys not giving 100%. Jermaine Illuminor was hurt early, so he said he was watching from the sideline. He saw guys not giving 100%. So that's number one. I think we need to talk about that, and then we need to talk about Malik Neighbors, who's their young dynamic star, and where his head is. But, you know, you tell me. You played. I didn't. Was that quitting? Was that soft? Was that just bad football?
I think it's bad football. I think it's an accumulation of all of it, because the last thing you want right now is for the national media, and this is player-wise, to be saying that you quit on a coach. It's one thing everybody can take shots at the GM, they can take shots at the head coach, but as a player, the last thing you want is for the national narrative now to start getting out to where all of it's a dumpster fire. Again, we saw Hard Knocks. We saw the decisions that were made. Some of them, they're going to be questioned forever. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, because Rex Ryan and those guys, or just the blogs, the vodcasts, everything out there in terms of content, you got to move on from talking about the GM and the head coach. Now it's going to be time to be calling out and talk about individual players. Because if you have a Jermaine Illuminor, a Dexter Lawrence, and Wan'Dale Robinson and these guys saying words, trigger words like soft, ass, guys not giving their 100. Now you got a Rex Ryan and these guys listening to it like, oh, let's move on from talking about the GM and the head coach and what they have going on and what they did and didn't do. Now we got players, individual players, that are quitting on their teammates, and you do not want that attached to your name.
Brandon, let me ask you something. You had some bad losses in college, I would think, right? Or
Yes,
in the
sir.
NFL.
Yes, sir.
You know. Okay. So if I came to you as a reporter after the game, right, and I said, Brandon, but he says, you know what? And I said to you, I think you quit. I think you quit out there. Okay. You would, I don't think you would have punched me. I think you're a smart guy, but, did you ever quit on the field?
Absolutely
Seriously,
not.
did you?
Okay,
you never quit.
I couldn't. As a
You were a
bubble
good
guy,
player in
you
college, though. You were a good player. So, okay, you said you wouldn't quit. Okay. Now it's interesting because, everybody talks to themselves, right? So Dexter Lawrence comes out and says, we were soft as something, right? We were soft. Now he's talking about the defense, right? Mm-hmm. He is talking about the defense. So then that gets to the narrative the Giants played soft. So John Runyon a day later is asked about that, the guard, and John Runyon is ticked. Not ticked necessarily at Dexter. He's ticked at the insinuation that we were soft. He's looking at himself and his offensive line, right? And he said, I don't think the guys out there are soft. I did think it's not anyone's in the building's DNA to play soft. I think there was a strong lack of execution in certain areas. Now, even when we pushed back with Dexter about that, he said, okay, the execution was soft because he was all of a sudden, his ears were burning all of a sudden when we're saying soft. Who's soft? Who played soft? Did you play soft? So he says, okay, the execution is soft. I mean, we saw that shot of Bucky Irving running through the whole defense, right? And Bobby Okereke, he looks like he's kind of like side saddling him for 50 yards down the field. There's a bunch of missed tackles. Is that bad execution? Is that, maybe a lack of effort on one play by a bunch of guys? Is that, Bobby Okereke is a guy with 150 tackles last year. I would never call him soft.
Absolutely. Nope.
And it's all, and did this Daniel Jones stuff get in their heads? Brian Burns, you know what he said about that? Did this stuff get in your heads? You know what I mean? He said, hell no. He said, was it a bummer? Was it awkward? Yeah, because Daniel was a leader, a great guy, great captain, great teammate. He said, that ain't got blank to do with us tackling. Okay, so I'm sure that's right. You know what I mean? I don't think when somebody goes to tackle, they go, oh boy, what a rough week we had. I'm not going to tackle this guy. But look, it's out there now. It's out there, okay? And we'll talk about it in the next segment, or the last segment, about what they have to do as a response. It is out there now. There's blood in the water, right? Tyrone Tracy said about his fumbling, there's blood in the water now with me, right? Defenses know they're going to take the ball away. As a team now, as a franchise, an organization, front office, coaching staff, there is blood in the water now. Real or imagined, everyone's looking at this. You've lost 6 straight games, and your team is a dumpster fire. You are a laughing stock. We are making fun of you. You're a meme show, right? And that's hard. That's tough. And, when you're 2-9, I'm not going to sit up here as a reporter who covers the team and say, oh, this is all manufactured. It's all BS. They're 2-9. There's something really bad going on.
And just the fact that no one can kind of get on the same page with what that message is like within the locker room has to get on the same page. They have to have some sort of players-only meeting, and not to be like, hey, guys, we need to play better. Hey, guys, we need to make sure we show up. We need to know what to say to the media. Because if you got one guy saying this is soft and the next guy saying like, oh, well, this isn't soft, now you got the beat writers. Tell me if I'm wrong, Paul. Now as the beat writers, you're like, wait a minute, this side is saying this side's not saying. These guys aren't on the same page. So it's almost like they got to come together, not on how to play better, but how to talk to the media to kind of keep some of the heat off of them.
Well, look, I will never rip a guy for speaking from his heart and telling what he thinks is the truth. I mean, I don't think there's any way you could have come away from that game against the Bucs and said the Giants weren't soft on defense. They were. So you say it, you own it. I don't hear a lot of guys, though, self-critiquing, saying, I messed up on that play. I was soft on that play. They're saying we were okay. That's fine. You know what I mean? Look, it's a lot of rhetoric. It's a lot of semantics. You can say what you want. You know, Brian Dable said, "I don't think it was soft. I think we were." Look, if Brian Dable one more time says we had a good week of practice, the results just aren't there on Sundays. I mean, fans are getting so tired of that. But that's coach speak, right? You know, if a coach comes out there and says, "Boy, I couldn't get through these guys in practice. I couldn't get through these guys in practice." You know, there's nobody grades practice right now. John Mara, the owner, is out of practice. He sees what's going on. You know, if guys are screwing around and not working hard, John Mara will see that. Most owners are not out there in practice. So John Mara has an advantage of being out there in practice. But when a coach says, "I couldn't get these guys to practice hard," then the owner says, "I'll get somebody else to get these guys to practice hard." So that's what a coach says. We're practicing hard. We're dialed in. We're listening. It's just not showing up. And then it opens the door. Is it coaching? Is it talent? Is it bad breaks? Is it all these other things? Yep. But we need to talk about Malik Nabers and what he said. What did you think, first of all, about how he presented himself? Because this guy is, he's the future. You can't lose this guy.
I think I'm okay with the way he presented himself, Paul. Like, there's no way to put lipstick on the pig when it comes to the frustration. Now, we can when we're media because we have, I guess, an image, or we work for a certain outlet and all. But when you are the face or the future face of the franchise, you're the guy that they brought in to be dynamic. You're the guy that they unretired a number for. All eyes are on you. You're part of the whole show. You're part of the reason why the crowd, it was still kind of a packed house at the beginning of the game. Daniel's gone or whatever, but they're at 2-8 at that time. They're still there to say league. They weren't able to do that to the second half. So that frustration was there. I don't think he individually called anyone out, and he kind of brought it all in towards the end and was like, I don't know, ask Dabes, because if he would have went off the rail there, then we would have really had a problem. So, you saw that Hard Knocks clip where Dable's talking to him, and he's talking about the frustration, and I want dogs and all. Well, when a dog gets frustrated, what does he do? He barks. It's almost when it's like the delivery man comes knocking on the door and the dog's just barking. You're like, man, be quiet. That's a dog. That's what a dog's supposed to do. A dog's supposed to alert when there's something going on, when there's some sort of danger. And that's exactly what I felt like Malik Nabers did, kind of alerted everybody. There's danger going on, and it could be even worse if I don't get the ball and get involved within this offense, because this offense goes through me.
No, I think you're right. I think, look, I think he treaded the line. He didn't cross it. He came close. He treaded the line. Look, he had no targets in the first half, right? And he said, I don't get the ball. I start getting targeted at the end. I mean, I couldn't do nothing. Start getting the ball when it's 30-0. What do you, want me to do? Okay, well, I mean, if I was Brian Dable, I would sit him down and say, Malik, we had 5 attempts in the first half. We had 8 dropbacks, 3 were sacks. There were 5 targets. Nobody had any targets. I mean, I think early in this season, Malik Nabers was getting targeted too much. It was like a one-man operation for a 21-year-old guy. Second half, he caught 6 passes for 64 yards. And then, asked about that, Nabers said, talk to Dabes about that. Talk to Dabes. He's the guy who calls the plays. He also said, it's ain't the quarterback, right? He said it ain't the quarterback. We had DJ. It's the same thing. He's not wrong about that. So I think you're exactly right. Brian Dable's got to, rein this guy in a little bit, but Malik Nabers is 21. He's frustrated. That's fine. I want him to be frustrated. I want him to be, what the hell is going on here? This is not acceptable. I think it's okay. As you mentioned, and I'm writing it for the Post, you have a dog, you want a dog, he's got to bark a little bit. That's all there is to it. Yep. I don't think he called anybody out. He didn't rip Brian Dable. He said, ask Dabes.
Ask him.
And we did ask him, and he explained it. Ask Dabes. He didn't say no one knows what the hell they're doing here. But it's important that Brian Dable and the leaders of the team kind of get in with Malik Nabers, because you don't want to lose this guy in the last 6 games. He's your star. He's your best player right now on offense, certainly. So, you got to kind of keep him mentally ready to go, because these games are important, not to the standings, but they are to him.
Yeah, and if you want any success, going into coming out of Dallas with a win. He's got to touch the ball early and often. And I think he won the fan base over with that, Paul. Like, if someone would have came out and kind of came against how Malik did it or what he said, or, oh, well, he should have been more like, respect. The fan bases felt that frustration because they were more frustrated than Malik. They wanted to see Malik. So I see heading into this Dallas game, he's got play. He better get a IV because he's going to get the rock early and often when they head on down to Dallas. So let's get some of the storylines out of Dallas, man. Paul, we got RJ Ochoa of Blogging the Boys back on with us. Because it's Thanksgiving Day game, man. It's the gift that continues to give on giving. We got Giants, Cowboys. Let's tap in with RJ now. RJ, what's going on, man? Paul, finally we have someone that's got more distractions and storylines coming out of their facility than we do. Thanks for joining us, RJ. What's going on, my man?
Thanks for having me, guys. You work very hard to get a job, to get a career, and then you wind up talking about the sun. That's kind of the way things tend to go at this point in my life.
The Sun, yeah. Look, I mean, we talked earlier in the season, right, RJ? And we thought the Cowboys were good. We thought the Giants were not very good. Turns out we were half right, I think, right? The Giants are not very good, and the Cowboys are not very good also. They're better than the Giants, though. I would ask you this, right? The Cowboys had, what, a 5-game losing streak until last week when they won in Washington? So fill in the blank for me, okay? The Cowboys beating the Commanders in Washington did what for the franchise?
I think it just quieted the waters, right? Like this ship is out at sea, and it was a 5-game losing streak that included the bye. So obviously it was a very long time and included some heavy primetime losses against the Philadelphia Eagles, against the Houston Texans. Not that there's a real big rivalry there, but if you want to call it one, that it took place on Monday Night Football with Troy Aikman lamenting the state of the franchise on top of it all certainly added to the situation. But I do think it, for modern times, it made the vibes a little bit more tolerable, especially for Cowboys fans who are obviously accustomed to their team playing on Thanksgiving. Now, all of a sudden, the conversations you'll have with, Uncle John and Aunt Sue are a little bit more pleasant than they otherwise would have been. And so it does have some people divided because, as you're both likely well aware, you do have a sector of the fan base that wants them to lose every game and to tank and just to move on to 2025 already.
Man, so basically, don't talk politics at the dinner table or a Cowboys 5-game losing streak. Duly noted. I guess with everything that we have going on up here in New York with the storylines, with distractions, just this overall Giants football team, are you guys looking at this game as a get-right game, another get-right game?
I mean, I think so. If you are a Cowboys fan that wants to feel the holiday spirit, if you've already got the Christmas music going, things like that, the fact that the Cowboys play on Monday Night Football after this game, right? You get this win, and all of a sudden, you really quiet the waters. You can get a good night's rest, and this team would be 5-7 at that particular point. But at the very least, you could start to legitimately entertain the idea of pulling something off. There are 5 teams since 2008 who were 4-7 at worst who managed to make the playoffs. For what it's worth, they all won a subpar division, which clearly isn't going to happen here. I think you look at what Tampa did against the Giants, and I say this with all due respect. I don't think that the Bucs are, a great team, but the fact that they were able to get right, and the fact that the Giants are kind of swirling in this, different level of chaos does suggest that the Cowboys might be able to have a solid holiday on Thursday afternoon.
Paul?
Well, yeah, I would say just as far as tanking, Cowboy fans got to, get their heads examined if they want to tank. They have a quarterback. You tank for a quarterback. Who are they tanking for? Travis Hunter? Okay. Fine. They're not going to get up that high anyway to get a player like that. I don't know. I just always think, go ask CeeDee Lamb. I saw Micah Parsons had some very strong comments about, anti-tanking. I get that. What I want to know, RJ, is, first of all, I thought it was very comical that there were a lot of people in New York when Daniel Jones got cut that says, oh, no, why would they release Daniel Jones? Why would they grant him his release? Now the Cowboys are going to sign him, and he's going to beat them on Thanksgiving Day because he's better than Cooper Rush. I think people forgot that Daniel Jones was 1-8 against the Cowboys, and some of their defensive players would openly mock him after these games. Is there? Obviously there was nothing to that. I think Stephen Jones came out and said, or Jerry said there was nothing to that. But did any of that filter down to Dallas? And is there any sense that Cooper Rush can put a little run together with this team?
Obviously Cooper Rush has had some level of success. He went 4-1 in the 5 games he started in 2022, and that's kind of the bulk of what he's done as a Dallas Cowboys quarterback. Obviously, he had a cup of coffee with the Giants when Jason Garrett was the offensive coordinator as well. And the Daniel Jones thing, I think, was just kind of chaotic fodder given the state of both franchises at this point in time. If there's a quarterback that Cowboys fans want to see that isn't Cooper Rush, it's Trey Lance, just because the team already burned a 4th-round pick. I mean, you might as well just kind of, take this car out for a legitimate tried and true test run. But this team, and to be fair, they were proven to be correct on Sunday against the Commanders. They believe that Cooper Rush gives them their best chance to win. I don't know that I think Cooper is, a top 30, 32 quarterback in the NFL, but I do think that he has an intimate understanding of how to operate this thing, how to fly this particular plane, how to drive this bus. And again, I think we saw that bear itself out on Sunday. So the Daniel Jones thing, I think, is just it's a tough situation, and I think that it's been made to be a bigger deal and probably fair from the Giants' perspective, but I certainly haven't minded that as a Cowboys fan, unfortunately.
Well, we talk about players being anti-tanking, tell Cooper Rush, who could be, as Paul, we talk about the Giants possibly looking for a place gap quarterback next year. Cooper Rush could be playing to be someone's place gap quarterback next year if they would come in and trade for him or however they can try and bring him in that sense. But I want to kind of get to the distraction part, people talking distractions and players saying things in the media or just having media outlets. The whole Malik Neighbors frustrations, as I'm sure you guys saw down there, calling the team soft as bleep. What would you say is kind of a bigger distraction, RJ? Malik Neighbors, his frustration, or that whole dynamic with the Micah Parsons podcast and him just kind of giving his perspective on anything and everything that's kind of going on in-house?
I think that Micah's podcast is circumstantial for Dallas Cowboys fans, right? When the team wins, and history is written by the winners, to be very clear. And so when you do win, you can do whatever you want because you've kind of earned that right. And so people don't obviously have a problem with it then. It's when you're losing and when you're getting embarrassed that it's, I think, really wearing on people. And I think that's probably the general overall takeaway is that it seems like the Cowboys, their players, their staff, their owner, they don't have a real proper ability to read the room. Obviously, Trayvon Diggs had to dust up with a local reporter. He and Micah Parsons went on their podcast to talk about that. And you could offer certainly an argument that talking about that provided some context that would be interesting. So I do think that there are pros and cons. But I do think that people are a little bit worn out by it, but they weren't worn out by it last year when the Cowboys were just another 12-5 team that was winning the NFC East and having all levels of success. People are fickle and people are petty. That's just kind of who we're all wired to be as human beings.
I want to know, about down the stretch here, if they don't get back in the playoff race, which, will be difficult for them. I heard Jerry Jones on one of his radio shows saying that, Mike McCarthy could get an extension. We'll see. We'll see. He does some good things, whatever. I'm sure Cowboy fans are not pumped up about that. Is he coaching for his job? Okay, in these last segment of the season, because they are 4-7. They could win 5 or 6 games this year. Is he coaching for his job? Does the Dak Prescott injury give him a reprieve? And what is the appetite for a Deion Sanders reunion in Dallas?
Man, there's a lot here, so I'll do my best. So, first of all, Jerry saying that McCarthy could get an extension is a bit silly to me because we can debate about whether it did or did not make sense, but they did not extend him back in January when they were coming off of 3 12-5 seasons in a row. That included a playoff win, obviously. Granted, that was 2 years ago. And Jerry offered in the interview that you're talking about that Mike McCarthy is a Super Bowl winning head coach. That didn't happen with the Cowboys, but that was just as true when they didn't extend him in January as it remains true today. So it is an interesting thing to all of a sudden prop up as a defense thing. I don't personally see a way, just again, my 2 cents, that where Mike McCarthy returns to this team. And you can argue whether or not you believe the Cowboys set him up for failure, whether this was a lame duck year. I mean, I think that they're just so far into this and they need a massive overall cultural reset. And that ripples up beyond the head coach up to the front office. But obviously certain things aren't going to ever change when it comes to this team. And so I do think that they're probably finding a new person to call the shots. And they will be, my prediction is, very firm in the verbiage that Mike McCarthy was not fired, but rather that his contract just was not extended or not renewed. The same situation happened to Jason Garrett when he left the office and Mike McCarthy took it over. The Deion thing, to me, look, you can argue about, and fans can argue about whether or not Dak Prescott is good or worthy or whatever, but from a practical, pragmatic standpoint, he is the quarterback of this team for the foreseeable future. And I think we all would agree that if Deion Sanders were to jump to the NFL, it would not be to coach in a league that his son is playing a quarterback or playing quarterback for a different team in. So I just don't see that happening. I do think at this point, I'm not going to count Deion Sanders out, and I say that as an Arizona State Sun Devil, so hoping things certainly work out there. But I think I know some people think it's ludicrous, but if you're the Cowboys, and I would offer this for the Giants as well, how can you say no to anything? How can you say we're above this or that idea, whatever it is, head coach, front office, GM, offensive coordinator? You cannot be afraid of any kind of disposition because what you've been doing to this point has not been working for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, no one knows who's a sure lock when it comes to who would be the next head coach or who would be the next quarterback, franchise quarterback to come in and lead a franchise to glory. You mentioned Jerry not setting McCarthy up for success. Which fan base do you feel like should be more upset about their offseason?
So I don't know how this falls for Giants fans because I recognize that this horse has been beat to death many times. And there's a lot of context to this that I'm sure we don't have the time for. I don't totally fault the Giants for the Saquon decision or for giving Daniel Jones the deal that they did when they did. I mean, contextually speaking, relative to the moment, those things made sense. They did not work out. And because they did not work out, we act like the decision in the moment was stupid and was wrong. And how could they all possibly be this, this dumb and this beyond any level of logic? It is unfortunate, obviously, that Saquon went to Philadelphia. And I do think that that's exacerbating the issue for Giants fans in this current moment. But I would offer that Giants fans have 2 Super Bowls since the dawn of the internet to kind of lean back on and ultimately calm themselves down. Whereas for the Cowboys, not to try to win this competition, this is who they've been. This idea that they've been inactive in free agency being new for maybe people who don't follow them on a day-to-day basis. The last big-time free agent deal they handed out was Brandon Carr in 2012. Ever since then, they have been so afraid of free agency. They have been so afraid of doing anything. They have just maintained status quo, and year after year, the only thing they wind up winning is the Forbes annual rankings of who the most valuable professional sports franchise in the world is. So I do think the Cowboys fans are more fed up because it's perpetuated a little bit longer.
I have one, RJ. Look, we could spend 2 hours on why the Cowboys will win on Thanksgiving. This we could have a long time. How do the Giants win this game? How do the Cowboys lose this game? Give me a couple of things that, look, I know the Cowboys can't run the ball. Well, the Giants can't stop the run. So, maybe neither team will try to run or stop the run. I don't know. They're like 30th and 31st in offense, defense. But the Cowboys have more tangible good things about their team than the Giants do, certainly. Quite frankly, the Cowboys have a better quarterback. Cooper Rush has done more things than Tommy DeVito has, certainly. I still remember that game when Tommy DeVito started last year in Dallas. That first half was, it looked like a Division III team going against the Cowboys, right? It was 28-0, and then, the Cowboys fell asleep a little bit, and Tommy DeVito, threw a few passes there. So how do the Cowboys lose? What 2 or 3 things that you've seen that are alarming to you about the Cowboys would come up in this game to help the Giants win?
The Cowboys, obviously, to your point, Paul, can't run the ball. And, you say that like, oh, well, and I know you're not literally saying it this way, but like that, oh, we know that, so whatever. But that's a big deal. I mean, it's really plagued them all season long. So, I mean, they're a 3-and-out team in a lot of respects. And I think it takes one moment for the game to dramatically change. And we saw that, obviously, at the end of the game against Washington with the Terry McLaurin play. And granted, the extra point and all that stuff. But it can be that quick. I know that the Giants are certainly down and there aren't a lot of playmakers, but Malik Neighbors exists. Even if he doesn't, I mean, it takes one talented NFL quality player to rip off an 86-yard touchdown to immediately change the calculus of this game. We've seen the Cowboys have some special teams miscues. Obviously had a field goal block last week. Brandon Aubrey missed one. Hasn't been the dude he was last year when he took the NFL by storm. So I do think it would be just kind of a calamity of errors. The defense kind of getting worked. Maybe one really long, just perfect drive for Tommy DeVito and the Giants to take a 10-3 lead, because we've seen this Cowboys team get a little bit in their heads. It's worth pointing out that they haven't won a game in this building since December 30th of last year, and that prior to this win against Washington, they had gone 6 straight games having a 20-point deficit at some point. I mean, think of if I asked you to bet on anything happening in 6 consecutive NFL games, if I told you an extra point would happen in 6 consecutive NFL games, you would say, I don't know. I mean, because nothing is possible to predict that consistently. Yet the Cowboys trailed by 20 points in 6 consecutive games. I should mention those were all at home specifically. So this is a cursed building for them is really, I guess, the genesis of my point. And it's not impossible. I know the Cowboys are favored. I know the Giants are really bad. And I know that everybody thinks this is going to go one way. But I would also add that this Cowboys team is the most, of course, team possible. What can go wrong will. It is a Murphy's Law proposition. And on Thanksgiving Day, with the entire world watching, it does seem like an opportunity for them to finally fall to the Giants and for the bow to break and the cradle to fall.
On the flip side of that, Paul, give us your final thought, and I'll wrap the show up.
Well, I mean, if the Giants go into Dallas on this, traditional Thanksgiving Day and beat the Cowboys, then if I were Mike McCarthy, I would, as RJ said, if I was Mike McCarthy, I would go to my real estate broker and say, don't put it on the market yet, but let's start getting feelers here. You can't lose to the Giants on Thanksgiving Day. The Giants are the Giants are a laughing stock in the league right now. They are. I mean, the Cowboys are what they are, and they were. I mean, they were sort of a laughing stock before they won last week, but they're the Cowboys. Like, a lot of people love them, most people hate them, but they're the Cowboys, and when they lose, it's a big deal either way. So I would be, I've just seen too much of this team. It's funny. RJ talks about all the things that the calamity of errors that the Cowboys are because he covers them, and I'm talking about all the calamity of errors that the Giants are because I cover them. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's what it is. The more intimate you are about a team that's great, you think they're great, and if they stink, you think they stink even more. So, I know I'll get a good meal from Jerry, a good Thanksgiving meal in the press box at AT&T Stadium. Other than that, all bets are off.
All right, well, RJ, thanks for hopping on with us, man. Stay on while I close this thing out. Thank you guys for watching the Blue Rush preview show. We're going to have our Blue Rush post-game live stream directly after Thursday's game. Make sure you check out our New York Post social channels to get more info and, of course, the link. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. Safe travels to you, Paul, from and to and from Dallas. And RJ, once again, thanks for hopping on with us. We'll see all of you next week.